Hi Patreons, I hope you are having a great day today. So before we start the discussion, let me introduce myself first. I am Gilbert Persola, your Purposive Communication Instructor. And for now, for the week one, we are going to talk about the first part of the lesson, which is the introduction about communication, particularly communication as a process, components of communication, forms of communication, levels of verbal and nonverbal communication. First, let's define what communication is. Etymologically speaking, the term communication comes from the Latin word communicare, means to impact, share, or make common. To communicate is to produce messages and links people together. Therefore, communication is a process by which information, meanings, and feelings are shared by persons through the exchange of verbal and nonverbal messages. The purpose of communication understands of information. It is the transmission, interpretation, and exchange of information. Now, if you are wondering about the importance of studying communication, its significance is that studying communication enables us to have a good grasp of this unavoidable human activity and hopefully makes us good and responsible participants. By being good participants means that as senders and receivers of messages, a common understanding is achieved, resulting in a successful communication. In your oral communication course in senior high school, you were introduced to the different elements such as sender, receiver, message, barriers or noise, channels, and feedback. Different models like linear, interactional, and transactional, and functions such as social interaction, information, emotional expression, motivation, and regulation. It is advisable to do a review of these communication principles so that in this course, Purposive Communication, we can already focus on expanding our knowledge of the field and immerse ourselves in various contexts wherein these communication events occur. What then is purposive communication? And what is the difference between purposive communication and oral communication? Purposive is synonymous with the word intentional. Therefore, purposive communication is an intentional communication that happens within the bounds of specific context. What is context? Context includes settings or environment like family, school, workplace, religious communities. It could also be social relations like friends, husband and wife, parent and child, colleagues or boss and subordinate in the office. Different scenes which include place, time and occasion like business meeting, job interview, social gathering, parties, weddings, and others. And culture like history, tradition, beliefs, norms, or values. Context, therefore, are vital considerations in our communication acts since they affect the process of sending and receiving of messages, semantics or meanings, choice of channels, words and methods of delivery. Communication, therefore, must be suitable to the specific context, hence, should be intentional or purposive. In your oral communication, from the word oral, its focus is only on speaking. In purposive communication, we deal not only in speaking, but in other macro skills as well, such as listening, writing, reading, viewing, and as we have mentioned, speaking. Now, we say that communication is a process. Process implies dynamics and change. It implies parts interacting and influencing each other so as to function as a whole. When we accept the concept of process, We view events and relationships as dynamic, systemic, transactional, adaptive, and continuous. Dynamic is contradicting to the word static. Dynamic is not fixed, but it is always changing. As it, deal, as it deals with change of behavior, communication changes constantly. Systemic. It means communication within a larger system. We communicate to other people because we want to work together to achieve a desired outcome. Transactional. The essence of the word transaction is relationship. One of the main goals why we communicate is to build relationship with other people. Adaptive. Adapt means ability to adjust. Like the way how we communicate to our friends is different from the way we communicate to our teachers or to our parents. Continuous. Communication has no beginning and no end. Communication is an ongoing process. Moreover, it continues to impact and influence future interactions and shape our relationships. Now, here are the essential components of communication. We have first communicators. When we are talking about communicators, we deal with two. First, sender or the encoder, and second, receiver or the decoder. Let's talk about sender or the encoder first. The sender or source imagines, creates, and sends the message. The source encodes the message by choosing just the right order or the best words to convey the intended meaning and presents or sends the information to the audience or the receiver. The receiver now receives the message from the source or the sender by decoding, analyzing, and interpreting the message in which both intended and unintended by the source. Second, message. It is the key idea that the sender wants to communicate. It is a sign that elicits the response of recipient. Communication process begins with deciding about the message to be conveyed. It must be ensured that the main objective of the message is clear. Third, channel or medium. The channel is the way in which the message or messages travel between source and the receiver. Spoken channels include face-to-face conversations, speeches, phone conversations, and voicemail messages, radio, public address systems, and Skype. While written channels include letters, memorandums, purchase orders, invoices, newspaper and magazine articles, blogs, email, text messages, tweets, and so forth. Fourth, feedback. When you respond to the source, intentionally or unintentionally, you are giving feedback. Feedback is composed of messages the receiver sends back to the source, verbal or non-verbal. All these feedback signals allow the source to see how well or how accurately or how poorly or inaccurately the message was received. Fifth, environment. The environment is the atmosphere, physical and psychological, where you send and receive messages. Surroundings, people, animal, technology can all influence your communication. Sixth, noise. This can be called as interference or barriers in communication. Interference is anything that blocks or changes the source's intended meaning of the message. This can be external or internal or even psychological. Noise interferes with normal encoding and decoding of the message carried by the channel between the source and receiver. We have different kinds of noise. First, we have physical noise. Example, human voice, loud sounds. If the speaker speaks too soft or too loud, it could be a reason why a listener fails to get the right information. Second, physiological noise. These are the distraction from the body of the speaker. Example, if the speaker is not feeling well or he has colds. Third, psychological noise. These are emotional disturbances. like thinking other things while listening or speaking. Next, semantic noise. The listener could not understand the language used. Like, for example, someone is speaking in Korean language. Since you are not familiar with that language, the tendency is that you will not get the message that the speaker wants to convey. Lastly, factual noise. The listener argues with the speaker about the topic. Like when you keep on arguing with your friend, there might be a tendency that you will not address a certain issue or relationship can be destroyed. Now, a message may be conveyed via forms of communication. We have verbal or even non-verbal. Let's discuss what is verbal communication first. Verbal communication uses either a written or spoken language. We have different levels of verbal communication. First, intrapersonal communication. It is from the Latin prefix intra, means within or inside. Therefore, it simply means talking to yourself by thinking or inner talk or inner monologue. While in interpersonal communication, as opposed to intra, the Latin prefix inter means between, among, and together, meaning a communication between and among people. In interpersonal communication, we have different kinds. First, dyadic communication. It involves the sharing of ideas or information between two persons who alternate as speaker and listener. Example is telephone conversation. Second, small group communication. It is a collaborative and systematic sharing of ideas and information among 3 to 8 persons in order to reach a consensus or common solution to a problem or to obtain facts. Example, committee meeting or board meeting. Third, large group communication or public communication. It is a speaker-audience communication which is used when you wish to address an audience. It requires a thorough preparation on the part of the speaker. Example, conferences, seminars, conventions, graduation speech, church gatherings. Lastly, mass communication. This form of communication may be done through either printed or oral medium. If it is oral, it utilizes airwaves through radio and television. The message reaches a very large audience nationwide or even worldwide. Example, State of the Nation address, broadcasting, newspaper, magazine. The second form of communication is the nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication makes use of non-linguistic symbols such as sign language, facial expressions, and body language. We also have different levels of nonverbal communication. First is kinesics. Kinesics is the study of body language or gestures, facial expressions, and actions. The human face is extremely expressive, able to convey countless emotions without saying a word. And unlike some forms of nonverbal communication, facial expressions are universal. The facial expressions for happiness, sadness, anger, surprise, fear, and disgust are the same across cultures. Second, paralanguage. From the prefix para means beyond. Therefore, paralanguage uses a voice and articulation where the content of your message is contradicted by the attitude with which you are communicating it. This includes factors such as tone of voice, loudness, inflection, and pitch. For example, your friend says that she's fine, but cold tone of voice or sad voice might suggest that she is actually not fine. Third, proxemics. Proxemics is the study of the use of space and distance. Have you ever felt uncomfortable during a conversation because the other person was standing too close and invading your personal space. We all have a need for physical space. Although that need differs depending on the culture, the situation, and the closeness of the relationship. You can use physical space to communicate many different nonverbal messages, including signals of intimacy or affection, aggression, or dominance. Fourth, chronemics. It is the study of time. The way a person treats time reveals something about him. Time can be used as a powerful tool to structure communication process. For example, in most countries, it would be a norm for a boss to be late for a meeting, but not for the subordinates. Going for job interviews, running up your start presentation or starting up your presentation for investors may also presuppose extra waiting due to power plays as well. Lastly, object language. This refers to the use of objects, clothes, and accessories to aid communication. Appearance is also an important nonverbal communication tool. Appearance includes dress, hair, jewelry, makeup, belt buckles, and so on. Appearance indicates the degree of importance or interest a person conveys to an occasion. Through uniform, we can identify a student, a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer, and others. Why does nonverbal communication matter? Your nonverbal communication cues, the way you listen, look, move, and react, tell the person you are communicating with whether or not you care, if you are being truthful, and how well you are listening. When your nonverbal signals match up with the words you are saying, they increase trust, clarity, and rapport. When they don't, they can generate tension, mistrust, and confusion. If you want to become a better communicator, it is important to become more sensitive not only to the body language and nonverbal cues of others, but also to your own. There you have it. That's the content of the week 1 module in JET 003 or Purposive Communication. If you have finished this video, kindly comment the word that will appear on your screen. Have a good day and keep safe.